Hello everyone, it's Eric. Freshy Kanal is currently my favorite rap battle creator, and this has been the case for a while. I love many of his battles from this year and last, and there are several bangers from 2019 and 2020. But my favorite year of Freshy Kanal rap battles is 2021. This was the year I got into Freshy and fan-made rap battles as a whole, so the battles from this part of the series do mean a lot to me. I think overall the quality is quite consistent, providing a large amount of super fun and creative projects. There are some duds, but I love the 2021 battles overall, and in this video, I'm ranking them all. Before we begin, note it's just my opinion. I'll do my best to justify every placement, even if there are some surprises, but ultimately, the only justification I need for myself is I like certain battles more than others. Now let's begin the ranking, starting from the bottom. Number 21, Zuko vs Jack Frost. I'll be starting very negative. This is like the start of the gridline ranking. I am not a fan of this project at all, and I feel very similarly about it as I did with Willy Wonka vs Flint Lockwood. But this one frustrates me even more because I'm a huge fan of Avatar: The Last Airbender, and I really like Rise of the Guardians. This is a bonus battle, which is sort of a relic of the past as a concept, but the idea is that bonus battles can be made quickly to fill gaps between major uploads. Sometimes bonus battles can be very fun and replayable, such as the fast-paced and hilarious Little Mac vs Big Mac. Unfortunately, this one seems to take itself very seriously with technical flows, intense deliveries, and darker material. Freshy and his team tried to balance that with some goofy lines, but they don't really work, and most of the lines that make me chuckle in this feel unintentional. This one was actually put on Freshy Kanal's winter album before the video release, and it strikes me as a project that was rushed out just to complete the album. I don't mean to insult the people who worked on this, at least not too harshly. I think they're all very talented, but I would be very surprised if I heard that anyone who worked on this particular battle was passionate about this one, or at least using these characters. But making this battle in general, I would not be surprised if it was fun to work on, and if it was, that's great, but the end result isn't something I personally have fun with. Let's talk about the battle now. In terms of things I like, the art is quite great. Cyan Coates is a very, very talented artist, and while this is not my favorite work of theirs, it is the best thing about this battle. The beat and Zuko performance are also solid. The beat fits well enough with the characters and is pretty catchy, which I think is important for a bonus battle beat. Certain parts of the beat don't match the energy of the rappers that well, but it overall makes the audio a fairly nice listen. For the Zuko performance, chay sounds similar enough to Zuko. It's not a perfect impression and the nuances of Zuko's character aren't really there, but I don't think you really need a super in-depth characterization for a bonus battle, so it still feels like Zuko to me. However, the same can't be said about Jack Frost. Nathan Provost was not the right cast in my opinion. He sounds very nervous and awkward for half of it, and overly confident and loud in others. In the source material, Jack Frost is very laid back, and neither of Nathan's two main emotions really fit with that character at all. Even disregarding these deliveries not fitting for the character, I just don't think they're very good ways to deliver lines in general, and it makes certain things unintentionally funny. I think both the casting and directing were a little off for this, and the Jack Frost parts are overall not enjoyable to listen to. Now for the worst aspect of the battle, the writing. I touched on the tone clash earlier, but the individual lines are just not great. I could go through every line I don't like, but I want to allow some time to talk about other battles, so I'll do what I did for Willy Wonka vs Flint Lockwood. I used a random number generator to pick 5 random lines to talk about, along with some other lines in the couplet in some cases. Let's begin that. First off, no one's coming close to my character developments. This is the best random line that I picked, and one of the best in the battle. There's no substance outside of Zuko just kinda saying he has a good arc, which he does, but it has a nice multi-syllable rhyme with elements beforehand, then some weirder ones afterwards with Melanin and Alan Kidd. But even though these 4 lines say very little, they sound nice enough and aren't overly frustrating. They're catchy, quick quips that I think fit in this bonus battle. Next line, I know that scar of yours isn't something you can just walk off. This one is an awkward delivery that does not flow very well, but it's the line that follows that truly astounds me. This is during the first 4 bars of the last verse. The beat dies down, and Jack Frost goes back to the quiet delivery to build up to the big diss before the beat drop. After mispronouncing a character's name so the lines will rhyme, we get the scar line that I think could have been reworded as the good beat drop line, but instead, it leads into, your greatest dishonor was that rat tail you chopped off! delivered in a way very similar to what I just did. I mean, that was quite the exaggeration, but you get the idea. It's referencing Zuko's hair from the first season of the show, which I didn't even realize at first because I've never heard of people make fun of Zuko's hair that way, or I've never heard of a rat tail. And I don't think it resembles the rat tail. I ended up looking up what a rat tail is for this, and in my opinion, it doesn't count. Even if it did though, this is a very weak line with a bizarre enough delivery that I laugh at this one every time, even when I'm just thinking about it, and I quote it semi-frequently. It's funny, but not for the reasons I think it was intended to be. Next, you must have plenty shade in the shadow of your sister. It's worth noting that before this they have "I'm a cold-blooded killer like Jack Frost the Ripper," which is technically a worse line. Jack Frost is not a killer, and the line is just very cringeworthy in general. However, the follow-up line makes an error that baffles me. But first of all, it's not a great line, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Zuko is indeed in his sister's shadow, but what does having shade have to do with that or anything? It feels like a weird thing to say. I think they could have easily thrown in an Avatar reference by saying something like, "Forget the day of black sun, you're in the shadow of your sister," or something like that, just to give the line a little style. Also, a pet peeve of mine is they say "plenty shade" instead of "plenty of shade," or any rewording that would count in the English language. Then again, that's not an uncommon thing. What is uncommon, though, is the way the word sister is completely lost in the mix. The line sounds like he's saying, "in the shadow of your chicka chicka." What happened there? I have no idea why, but you cannot hear the word sister at all. It ruins an already bad diss by making it sound weirder. That weird chicka chicka comes in, and I think it's an unprecedented mistake in Freshy Kanal battles, and I can't recall it ever happening afterwards. There's sometimes overlap, but you can hear the words. I know it's a small detail, but it just reinforces my belief that this project was very thrown together without a whole lot of thought. Next line, "It's no surprise this guardian can't rise." This one is an innuendo, and I think good innuendos can be hard to pull off. This being proof of that. I get the pun on Rise of the Guardians, but this is a Gandalf vs. Dumbledore ERB style joke. It's the sort of subject matter that fits fine in a bonus battle, but also greatly clashes with the fact that it's being said in a very serious and cold Prince Zuko verse, along with the fact that it's the last line in the section before the beat dies down. This line closes the stanza, and I don't think a closing line should be this facepalm inducing. You know, I've talked about this more than enough. I'm pretty sure I might have done 4 lines instead of 5, but said I was doing 5, but I'm not even going to go back and check. Let's just close this out. There isn't really any constructive criticism that needs to be taken from this because bonus battles aren't even really a thing anymore, and the mistakes in this are not common in any other Freshy Kanal battle. It's just kind of a bad project that feels like it was made to hold fans over, and not really to add to Freshy's catalog substantially. But hopefully, it was fun enough to work on, and the team can have a good laugh looking back on it. If you like it, that's cool. If you think I was too mean and ranted on too long, that's fair. But I've been waiting 3 years to do this, and unlike the creators of this particular battle, I am passionate about every aspect of it. Just not in a good way. But don't worry, this is the only 2021 Freshy Kanal battle that I truly despise. Sort of. Number 20, YouTube versus Twitch. This battle is a massive step up in many regards, but I also kind of hate it. I know hate's a strong word, but there is one aspect that I just can't get past, and that's the matchup. I think battles with entities rather than characters or people are usually very hard to do, because you don't have any personality or characterization. There's not as much of interest in that regard, and it can be difficult to do. They sorta pull this off, there is some fun characterization here, so that's not my main issue. What I do dislike, I kinda struggle to pin down, but the project makes me kind of uncomfortable. I think the use of YouTube and Twitch makes it impossible to avoid using references that'll be either dated really soon or distasteful on release. The battle has lines about Jeff Bezos, Logan Paul, Baby Shark, Logic, Susan, ASMR, and it all just feels like the original Brain Rot battle to me. None of these lines are funny, and they weren't funny on release. I'm sure it was fun to make at the time, but just name-dropping a bunch of things that people dislike on the internet doesn't make those things more likable. There is also a particularly big focus on really lowbrow humor, none of which lands. I love YouTube poops in general, but the way they're referenced here makes me cringe. In terms of good lines, some of the disses actually do work against the entities, and they're pretty timeless. My favorite line is, "Somebody comment the timestamp to my verse." It's funny, it's something people still do today, and I'm sure some people did in fact comment the timestamp. These good lines are few and far between, sadly, so most of the writing is just really lame and cringeworthy. I guess I should talk about other aspects of the project, though. The performances have some fun moments, but they all fall into the trap of representing entities and therefore just kind of feeling like the rappers doing normal voices. Politicus does have an energy that fits Twitch very well, but Freshy Kanal as YouTube feels like demo vocals a little bit. The beat, it fits well enough, but also some very unappealing instruments to it, which I guess is expected from something based on internet stuff. The video is probably the best aspect of the battle though. Luke Riordan is a very creative artist, and he does a lot of fun stuff in this battle. Some of the highlights of the battle for me are his creative animations. Things like YouTube converting into a massive TV screen and the goofy facial expressions in general. Luke gives some personality to the rappers that was otherwise missing, and I think giving the rappers normal faces rather than just the logos is why that works so well. This was a good creative decision. The faces are expressive and enhance the performances, which makes the battle much more watchable. Overall, there's merit here, and the project is sometimes fun, but I just really think it's not for me, and it's probably the most cringeworthy project in Freshy Kanal's catalog. I don't think it's really his fault, and I'm sure some people love this one, but it's not my style. Number 19, The Spy vs. Robbie Rotten. Another bonus battle. This one was kind of a bigger rush job than Zuko vs. Jack Frost though. It was part of a 48-hour rap battle challenge, but only the audio was done in that time, so the video was in production a bit longer. The audio is fine given the short time frame, but it's also quite flawed. The performances are certainly both fun, but the Robbie Rotten side is the same issue of words being hard to hear in the mix. It's not nearly as bad as Shadow Your Chicka Chicka, but it makes this verse feel a little frustrating to listen to at points. Mostly the second verse, I'm saying. I don't really like the beat also because it feels very drab to me. The intro part puts me in a bad mood genuinely, but it's not the worst fit, I suppose, and during the actual battle it's fine enough. The writing is very but solid for 24-48 hours. There are plenty of decent lines in there like open a laptop and look at this net, with fun little references to Lazy Town, and nothing in here is especially egregious. It's just not super memorable. Honestly, the aspect that stands out to me the most is the video. The sign code art is once again quite great, but the way the characters are constantly moving because of the puppet tool keeps the battle much more interesting. Additionally, the movements often sync up with certain lines, and the extra art with things like Robbie laying on the couch is all very fun. This is the only bonus battle in history where the video is the highlight, but it is a fun video. This is the aspect that makes me want to revisit it more than anything else. The rest is just okay, and the video is not best in the series by any means, but it contributes to an overall okay project. Number 18, Quentin Tarantino vs. Tim Burton. This is not a bonus battle, but I think it might as well be. There isn't much I strongly dislike here, but the whole thing just feels very uninspired. This will be a short segment because there's simply not much to say. The vocal performances are both just very okay, and while I think Mr. Tibbs and zawesome were trying, they just don't seem to get into the roles too much. The impressions are passable, but the energy isn't really great. The body acting is kind of fun since the two people actually met up in person, leading to some fun interactions that make the battle feel less stilted. That said, the video is very unremarkable apart from that. It's well edited enough, but good editing can only take a project so far in my opinion. I guess the other thing to say is the writing. There are some lines I think are good, such as, for black and white movies you mostly cast the white part as a solid rebuttal to one of Burton's lines, and the briefcase reference is pretty funny. However, it feels like pretty surface level knowledge of these directors. Much of the writing is very forgettable, and it's unfortunate. I know most of these battles by heart due to being so into them back in 2021. This is one of the few exceptions. There are also low moments in the writing, like rhyming movie with booty. All in all, this battle is not a massive stain on the 2021 catalog, but it doesn't add much either. I imagine I would dislike this one more if I were a big fan of the directors, and it's unfortunate that there isn't more flair to the project, but at least we got Edgar Wright vs. Wes Anderson a year later. Number 17, Money Heist vs. Wolf of Wall Street. This one definitely feels like it had more effort and passion behind it than Tarantino, but the end result is not significantly better. I think it has very similar issues, frankly. Tibbs once again provides a rather uninteresting performance that doesn't have the same charisma of Jordan Belfort, and while Keyblade is an excellent voice, I also don't find his performance super interesting. They both tried, but I feel like these characters are more nuanced and need to have more range. I don't know the characters that well, so maybe I'm wrong, but I think the lack of range and energy carries over to the body acting. Both Tibbs and Lawless Marshall, but particularly Marshall, they feel stilted here. They've both done great body acting and voice acting before, all these people have done great things in other battles. But in this one, it just seems to have weaker direction in that department. The writing is overall a bit more interesting than Tarantino. It has a greater focus on rhyme schemes, some of which actually sound quite good. I like the line, "You put a mass parade with fragile brains and hand grenades in charge of your identity," and some of the individual punches are pretty fun here, like the flip a coin one and play chess with my mind, I'll buy the board and play Monopoly. That said, most lines are unremarkable as well, and it's another battle I don't think I could recite by memory. The writing is competent, but there just isn't much that stands out as especially funny, catchy, or harsh. The professor's side especially suffers from being uneventful, as I think the last verse is the biggest nothing sandwich in Freshy Kanal's entire deli. However, there is one thing in this battle that greatly improves most other aspects and somewhat makes up for the shortcomings: the beats. Just from the intro, this battle sounds amazing. The incorporation of the song Bella Ciao is beautiful, and the instrumental feels so grand. The different sections of the beat capture the emotions perfectly in each section, and that makes up for the performances falling a bit short. The beat is so good that I was almost tricked into thinking that the scheme at the end of Professor's first verse was good. The strings and percussion sound gorgeous together, and every beat drop is just incredible. Overall, I don't really like this battle, but the beat is one of the best in this whole list, and that has to count for something. Number 16, Norman Bates vs. Jack Torrance. This is the first battle I would consider really good. It feels like a passion project that had a lot of work put into it, and it's pretty well rounded. That said, I don't have very strong feelings on this one, and it feels a little out of place in the 2021 catalog to me. It's kinda tough to talk about because I think every element of it is good, but not great. I'll try to talk through what works well and maybe what holds back the project a bit, but it might be a tough one. Let's start with the beat. The beat was custom produced, and I like it a lot. It fits the horror vibe, but also feels pretty unique as far as rap battle beats go. The piano tends to sound great in rap battle beats, and this one is very nice. The vocal performances are also quite solid. Squid fits super well as Torrance, and it took me years to figure out littlesecks was voicing Bates. This audio overall comes together quite nicely. I just don't get into it as much as some other ones because it's ominous, but ultimately very low energy. The video is an aspect I think is a bit less consistent, though. Some transitions and storyboarding are incredible, like the bloody eye opening up, or the spin that shows Norman writing in the notebook. Other parts look very awkward in comparison, and in general, the body acting felt kinda disconnected from the voices, which takes me out of the viewing experience a bit. Zawesome and Skitsy were good choices, but their performances just don't always match up with the lip syncing or the mannerisms. The video has high highs, but only hits those best notes at a few points throughout the battle. Writing is harder to comment on. I have not seen the movies, so it doesn't resonate with me much. There are some great lines here that hit hard and feel very in character. Things like the closer, "Your mind is your own maze and you will never find the exit," is fantastic, chillingly delivered. And other lines like the "lifeless mind and mindless life" wordplay stand out as very creative and well thought out. Most of the best lines come from Torrance, with Bates not really having anything that stood out to me outside of the Jack Frost one. I liked that line, but his parts are just kind of forgettable, and his fast rap was poorly incorporated in my opinion. I think the battle works best when it just has the time to let the performances and material sink in, and this fast part does not really do that for me. Ultimately, it's a very good project with a lot of creativity in every aspect, and it's pretty unique in the tone it sets. However, it never appeals to me as much as battles with similar quality that have a more fun vibe. There might be a personal preference thing there. I tend to enjoy funny battles more than really serious ones. This project is a success, but it's not really made for me. Number 15, Ted vs. Paddington. The best of the 2021 bonuses. This battle is just a good time and full of personality. It does feel a little thrown together like other bonuses, but there is some great stuff here. First off, the beat is really groovy. I love the brass in there along with the different piano riffs. It's all super catchy and fits the goofy vibe of the battle. The casting is also excellent. Little Flex does not provide a perfect impression of Paddington, but I can totally buy him as the character and it's a fun performance. Brock Baker is a great impressionist and he sounds good here, but he's definitely not as experienced with rap, so some of the deliveries and flows are pretty off. The weirdest is the way he says, "The trial of yours gave you like no chance of winning. If that was a Law and Order case, it would take less than 5 minutes. He's still a solid pick for the battle though, and the beat and writing work very well with his voice. Speaking of writing, some of the lines, especially Paddington's, have the flaw of seeming a little too dark. I'm not sure how I feel about Paddington being impolite and using vulgar language. It feels like it was meant as a funny idea, and I'm sure it was fun to write these lines, but I think very few of these vulgar jokes are funny, and it was a bit of an odd direction for this character. Fortunately, there are some excellent lines in the battle. Paddington's best is probably his closing couplet, as it feels like something he would say, along with the line, "You're stuffed with tons of padding." Fun bit of wordplay. I honestly think Ted has much funnier jokes, like the haircut reference, the Law and Order one I mentioned earlier, and then his second verse just works super well for me. The line, "I've been smoking trees since trees were smoking your uncle," is insane. It's one where the slightly off-flow delivery from Brock Baker actually benefits the line by adding more emphasis. Then the last 4 lines are super well delivered, and the jokes about Paddington being forgotten after 3 days is really funny. I wish this battle didn't wait until the last 6 lines to hit its stride, but the whole thing is pretty fun and decently written. I think Freshy Kanal is capable of making a better Paddington battle, but I still like this one quite a bit. Number 14, Minecraft versus Little Big Planets. Okay, I think most people would put this higher, so it's time I reveal something that has been affecting the rankings without me really telling you. That thing is nostalgia. I watched all of these battles 3 years ago, and my thoughts on them from back then greatly dictate the ranking now. Every battle I've discussed so far is one that didn't really stand out to me back when I first watched them, while most of the battles I have not mentioned yet are ones I really loved. This one did not do it for me back in the day. I'm not sure why, but I have a sort of allegiance to 10 or so battles I really vibe with back then, and I don't think this one could go much higher for me as a result. That said, it's a good project. I don't like the beat all that much, but it works pretty well in the battle, so that's not a huge fault. The one element I appreciate more on rewatches that might aid the placement in the future is the writing. It's quite solid, and shows great knowledge of both franchises, knowledge I generally lack. There are schemes I don't really like, such as the way Cam delivers the first 2 lines in the last verse, but the whole "oh dang mojang" section is awesome. I love that part. There are tons of quick quips in here that I think work really well as both disses and references, and that's my favorite kind of line because they work as both harsh things and funny jokes. One of my favorites is, "How can your world be infinite when you fell off?" That's a fantastic diss. The flow is overall pretty catchy outside of a few schemes like the one I mentioned. Every time I rewatch the battle, I gain some new appreciation for at least one of the lines. There are still some jokes I don't like. For example, I think Minecraft to Minecraft is a rather obvious joke that's not all that clever. This overall feels like a fun, bouncy project making the most of 2 game series though. Maybe if I knew the games better or didn't watch it until today, I would put it much higher. But ultimately, I still don't think the lyrics are spectacular, and most of the battle tends to disappear from my mind after I rewatch it. That happens with good battles sometimes. I can't fully explain it, but I can place the battle where I want and nobody can do anything about it, so it stays here. Number 13, Jaws versus the Loch Ness Monster. Another that some might put higher. My thoughts on this one can be summarized by saying it's a fun but unremarkable project. The thing I care about most in the battle is the writing, most specifically the lines. Good flow and rhyme schemes are also certainly important, and when they're amazing, they can be a major part of making a battle one of my favorites. But I'm more likely to talk about good disses or jokes with my friends compared to good flows. I think the flow here is excellent, and most of the rhyme schemes are really catchy while still having decent substance. Unfortunately, I like very few of the lines. The only ones I really liked are the end of your tail wordplay, the lockjaw pun, and by far my favorite, "You got millions of civilians to visit a lake to do nothing!" This isn't enough good lines for me to say I really like the writing overall, and I'd only call one of the lines great. I think the other production aspects are all quite good though. The performances are both excellent, so neither of those are holding the battle back. The beat is kinda weird, but I do like the different instrumentation in different parts of the battle, with some ideas like using Jaws' theme is being very well incorporated. That part didn't blow me away, but it is very good. The video for this one is sort of all over the place. I like the art a lot, and I think it actually blends in pretty well with the realistic backgrounds and effects, but the puppet tool is very awkwardly used at points, and the animations are a bit more cartoony and don't really match the art in terms of how the characters are represented. The last animation with Nessie swimming away scared is the best example of that, and I think the character should have stayed a bit more ominous throughout that part. Ultimately, this is another battle I didn't vibe with when I first saw it, but it's still pretty great. In many ways, it could rank higher, but the video definitely earned this lower middle spot, and the lack of good lines means there's other projects that stand out more to me. Before getting to the top 12, I want to clarify where we stand in this ranking video right now. The last 4 battles I've discussed are all ones I consider really good and maybe even great, but I don't have much attachment to. The top 12 are all battles I loved when they came out, and I still have strong attachment to. The fact that 12 of the 21 battles in a single year resonated with me like this is commendable, and Freshy Kanal and his team should be very, very proud of this catalog. These 12 battles are all great, and formed an era of me learning that not just ERB can make great battles, eventually inspiring me to make my own series. Now that that's clear, let's get to the really positive entries of this list. Number 12, Sonic vs. The Flash. For a long time, this was the most popular Freshy Kanal rap battle. It has nearly 10 million views. However, it's simultaneously very unpopular, given the 8,000 dislikes. When this came out, I liked it quite a lot, but I did have some issues with it. This project was, from my understanding, in development for a while, and this makes sense. A lot of this stuff feels older than 2021. I think the focus on Sonic fanboy disses is indicative of that. And some lines definitely don't hold up that well now. For example, I make new 52, you make more 34. It's kind of funny because Flash's laptop was already open to Rule 34 stuff, which is very interesting, but it's a pretty weak diss, and it's not clever enough to make up for the actual subject matter being sort of lame. However, apart from some weak lines, this battle's older feel makes it seem like a throwback in a good way. The beat produced by Custom does not sound like the sort of thing you'd hear in many battles today, but it sounds great and fits the characters well. The tempo of the beat was a perfect choice for this fast-paced battle between the speedy characters. The performances are not perfect impressions, but I really like them. Matt Foreo as Flash is really fun, and it sounds like it was a fun one to record for as well. There are some great deliveries in there. And Alex M as Sonic is similar, having some great deliveries and sounding like she was really into it. It just feels like the people working on this came together and had a good time, as most people do in their earlier projects and hopefully do in all their battles. In terms of writing, I was going to initially put this 2 or 3 spots down before rewatching because I didn't think there were enough strong lines to counteract the more boring stuff like the 34 line. However, I was wrong. This battle has tons of fun quips. The flow is very simple, so the focus is on individual lines, and I love that. The lines go by fast, but the best ones are placed smartly in parts of the battle where the viewer has more time to take them in. My favorite lines include, "Put on some clothes or do I need to address that Flash is my name and not a request?" Also, "It doesn't take tail to tell I'll run a mile," and "You flow like someone who can't swim." And then another really good one is, "These OCs make me sick, Sonic chew!" But best of all is the truly phenomenal closer, "Forget your gold rings today, you took a quick silver." Most of these are either disses that are played out like Sonic doesn't wear pants, or they don't really diss anything at all. But they're clever. They're fun jokes that fittingly fly by for this fast-paced flight. What can I say? It's a quick project, a fun one with tons to enjoy, and a solid animated video to boot. Some parts of the animation, especially the running animations, do look a little weird, but it's still an overall positive for the battle. The project has buckets of charm, and most aspects hold up quite well. Number 11, Squid Game vs. Mr. Beast. If you're not an avid fan of Freshy Kanal, this is probably the battle you've been waiting to hear me talk about. Most people know this battle, and Freshy Kanal as a whole, solely because of Mr. Beast! It is insane to me, as someone who's been a fan for such a long time, including when this came out, that the big thing that blew up on this channel was the intro to a battle. The intro meme does add an additional funny moments, and that's a funny thing. Whenever you hear him say the name now, you cannot not think about the fact that it's a meme. The battle itself is also very fun, well-made, and chock full of great lines. Let's break down the different elements of this battle and then the different rappers. For the video, you have a similar issue to Norman Bates where some parts look exceptional, and others are kind of boring. I love most of the editing in Gi-hoon's first verse, but other parts are just not super creative. I think the storyboarding, despite being well edited, maybe wasn't all that interesting. The beat's okay, I don't love the bass beat, but the added instruments greatly improve it and make it fit the matchup much better. The better part of the audio is the performances, and this deserves much more elaboration. Mike Cho as Gi-hoon does an incredible job. His performance really does capture the mannerisms and energy of Gi-hoon. He has moments of humor but can also be very aggressive. Cam Steady as Mr. Beast is now iconic, and even though he doesn't really sound like Jimmy, he feels like a caricature, and I think it works given that the real Mr. Beast is generally very low energy, which wouldn't have fit all that well with the beat or battle in general. The body acting is similarly quite great. Skitsy is not given much to do as Mr. Beast, but his dance moves in the background are fun, and he perfectly syncs up with Cam's audio, making the role quite cohesive. Mike Cho and Jay body acting for Gi-hoon and Frontman respectively are much more kinetic, which I think works with the greater aggression and generally goofier and faster paced writing in their verses. It's very entertaining to watch, and fits the vibe of the battle. But what about the writing? Well, I said the battle is great lines, and I stand by that. Mr. Beast has more serious disses, since Squid Game is a very serious show. He mostly ties in dark moments from Squid Game into either common rap battle jokes like, "I'm like your mama, I'm dead sick," or into Mr. Beast references like, "I just replaced all of Gi-hoon's surviving friends with Legos." These are funny ways to reference dark moments in the lighthearted battle, and I think they work, especially when paired with silly lines like, "Save those subs for PewDiePie." The Mr. Beast writing is very entertaining and catchy overall, but I think it's the weakest in the battle. The disses are good, but I find myself drawn to the faster rappers that fit more disses into the same amount of rapping time. The frontman has lines even funnier than Beast's, with references to Orbeez, Team Trees, and more. The context of a terrible person from Squid Game cracking these jokes is hilarious. His verse is zippy and laugh out loud funny. Then you have Gi-hoon, who I already loved the first verse of for the insanely catchy rhyme schemes and phenomenal performance. The way he talks about the good things Mr. Beast does, and turns the table to say he's deceptive and exploitative, was fire when the battle dropped, and gives me chills now. Even the fortune cookie line aged really well, and that one was always funny. Simply put, this battle is outrageous, and despite having a ton of dark disses, whether Freshy knew or not at the time of writing, nothing is taken too seriously, and the end result is a hilarious and very rewatchable battle I absolutely love. It's not one of the favorites of best of the best, but it holds up really well, and I'm glad it has a lot of fans and just generally helps introduce people to this great rap battle series. Number 10, Trevor Henderson vs. Corpse Husband. This battle's interesting because I think it's at a massive disadvantage, but it's strong enough to stand out as one of the greats. There are two main disadvantages, and describing them will show just how different people's perspectives on rap battles can be. The first is I don't know these characters. I had never heard of them before the battle, and I still don't really know anything about them. For a long time, I would not watch Freshy Kanal rap battles that had characters I didn't know, even after I was a true fan of his projects for a good part of 2021. I could not bring myself to click on the great battles from 2020, like Pyrocynical vs. Memulus, Hannibal Lecter vs. Leatherface, or Among Us vs. Fall Guys. Alright, that last one was more of a conscious choice, but nonetheless, it wasn't until I started branching out and finding more rap battle channels like Jofinity and WCRB that my obsession with the genre was strong enough I ended up watching more Freshy Kanal battles, even if it had characters I didn't know. With the exception of one other I'll get to later, this was the first 2021 Freshy battle with characters I did not know. I was very familiar with at least one from most other battles before it. Now unfortunately, there are lines in here that I feel like might be really good, but I truly don't understand at all and they have no weight as a result. A good example is the closer, "At least you had a reference to draw another skeleton." I don't know what that means, but it sounds awesome. Sadly, I just don't catch the references the same way I do for Squid Game or Sonic, so the writing mostly goes over my head and I can't praise it that much. Fortunately, some of the writing is very easy to understand, making this project at least somewhat accessible. Puns like "creepy impasta" are easy to follow, and lines like "Anthony Fantano thinks you got that weak flow" are very blunt, but they still work as great lines due to the strong delivery. Sometimes, a great rap battle line doesn't need to be the most technically written, it just needs to be conveyed well. And that's a big strength of this battle, and leads into the other disadvantage. This disadvantage ties into the battle's greatest strength. It sounds excellent. The beat is another horror one, like Norman Bates, but this one is also very intense and completely sucks you in. Additionally, the vocal performances are phenomenal. Whether it's Corpse Husband's monotonous, intimidating voice, Trevor's confident and aggressive deliveries, or Siren Head having 3 distinct voices that all sound excellent, every rapper greatly contributes to an exceptional audio. I especially love when Siren Head imitates Corpse Husband's voice. Alex M does this voice along with the actual Corpse one, and you can tell is imitating that voice without sounding exactly like the actual Corpse performance. It's like when Trey Parker, who voices both Eric Cartman and Stan Marsh in South Park, voices Stan imitating Cartman without just doing his Cartman voice. That's hard to do, but Alex M pulled it off here. So those are my praises for the audio. But what's the disadvantage here? Well, as great as this battle sounds, the sound is probably the least important element of a battle to me. This shows how people with a shared interest might have different reasons for said interest. Some people get into rap battles because they love rap or music in general, and if they're making the rap battles, they want to make good songs in that format. Personally, I got into them because I found ERB and I enjoyed their funny and entertaining YouTube videos. When I watch a rap battle, I can easily distinguish between what I consider to be good writing and bad writing, or even good writing and great writing. But audio is not the same. I watch them as YouTube videos, not songs mostly. I don't always have the best ear for telling between a good performance and a great performance, and the difference between decent and great mixing is almost impossible for me to decipher. This has changed a bit over time, which is kinda why I appreciate this battle's audio more than I used to, but generally speaking, my view of rap battles as YouTube first, song second, stays fairly strong. Neither view is more correct than the other, but this one does affect my perspective on battles where the sound is the highlight, like this one. This is a great battle, and there's plenty of merit outside of the sound, but the best stuff in this battle doesn't appeal to me as much as the best stuff in some others. Number 9, Doctor Strange vs. Doctor Who. This feels like a big passion project. It's fairly lengthy and covers tons of material from both characters, seeming to show great knowledge of multiple iterations of both. I can't say for sure, because I know nothing about Doctor Who. I find the Doctor Who ERB to be more accessible than this one, given that the disses are funny and require literally no knowledge of Doctor Who. This is definitely a letdown for most Doctor Who fans, and I think the Freshy Kanal battle works a lot better for that audience. And that audience is important because, as I said in the last entry, some people only click on rap battles with characters they already know and love. For someone more niche than ERB like Freshy Kanal, this selective viewing might be more common. So it's great that Freshy and his team put a lot of effort into making this battle to have such a great appeal to the fans. The whole project is overall great. I love the way the beat is edited, for starters. I find the actual beat a bit weird for a rap battle, but Freshy edits it in a way that makes it fit much better. Additionally, the performances here, at least the voice ones, are awesome. Connor Quest is a very appealing voice in general, and he does a great job here, though I can't judge the impression. Mr. Tibbs as Doctor Strange is pretty awesome. It's far from a good impression of Benedict Cumberbatch, but it's still a powerful and commanding voice that gets silly at just the right moments. He has some very memorable deliveries such as, "I could save your whole race from extinction, but I won't." These audio elements are very good, and the video is fun as well, but I wouldn't say any of this really stands above the last few battles I've named. In fact, the last one I named is a better audio, but why does this rank higher? Well, from this point on, I'll be talking about the writing a lot more. It's the jokes and flows that I loved when I first watched this that really do stand out to me, and they're the reasons the battles rank as high as they do from this point on. This battle is interesting for me because it falls under a group of battles that share an oddly common trait in the 2021 catalog. That trait is that the second rapper's first verse sweeps the rest for me. This can sort of be seen in Squid Game vs. Mr. Beast. I think Gi-hoon is the strongest one, and I would call Corpse Hudson vs. 1 and Jaws vs. 1 my favorites in those battles. But quite a few I have not named yet have a particularly big gap in the entertainment value between the second verse of the battle and the rest. I think the other verses are great here. For example, the whole sports car joke is really funny. I love the way he says, "Now that joke was an accident." The flow is quite catchy pretty much the whole way through, and I've already shouted out the extinction line. I love all of this, but Strange's first verse has most of my favorite moments. I love the way he starts out pretty slow as the beat stays quiet and he's a silly Doc McStuffins joke. That made me chuckle. Then, he drops a very accessible line about the Doctor being the same in every season, followed by the beat drop, which leads into a section that smartly builds on the line. Strange breaks down the formula of Doctor Who, and then as the great lines, "Then the BBC says, we've found the bargain, let's barf it again," as a great way to cap off that diss. The following punchline, "It's ironic you're rapping as far from a 10, is also a joke I can easily understand and enjoy thoroughly. The next two lines are good but not standouts, but the screwdriver couplet is hilarious. especially with the way Tibbs says, "No one has a drive to ever screw you!" Then the flow really picks up again, and I just love the way this whole section sounds. The beat enhances it, but I remember being completely hooked at this part on first viewing. The way he says, "I light up the scene to 1,000 degrees when it comes to the degrees you can actually check mine," is awesome. And it's actually a diss that was done in the ERB, but it works much better here thanks to the beat, performance, and added creativity of using the word degrees twice. Then it caps off with a stellar closer. "You killed Rose the moment you picked her." That's an excellent line that can be understood by even those who don't know Doctor Who, and I can't imagine how hard it is for the fans. This verse is phenomenal, and definitely my favorite I've discussed so far. The whole battle is great through and through, but the best stuff here is on a different level from what I've talked about so far. Number 8, Barneysson versus Sheldon Cooper. Just like Strange, Sheldon Cooper's first verse is easily my favorite. Let's get that out of the way first. The performance is incredibly fun. Zawesome's resemblance to Sheldon is uncanny, and while Matt Forio's impression is not perfect, the squeaky and nerdy voice is a fun characterization for Sheldon. And then the writing is very in character but also absolutely brutal. I don't know Barneysson well, but these disses bring up pretty serious things, and the whole verse feels like a sort of Season 2 ERB type thing. Tying in fun with flags to harassment allegations is a crazy way to connect the shows, and it makes for exceptional lines. Then you have the part afterwards where the percussion really kicks in, and Sheldon references math while dissing Barney's dating life. The way this is ultimately just all a build-up to saying Neil Patrick Harris, the actor who portrays Barneysson, is gay, is so funny but also a really smart diss. Then you have some fun, quick references that tie in Sheldon's well-known intros and jokes and the fun little puns. And I love these lighthearted puns rounding out the verse because honestly, if the whole thing was Sheldon being completely brutal, bringing up terrible things the guy does, it might be too far a stretch for the character. There's a good amount of harsh lines in the battle, but not too many, and I think that's a great balance. This is my favorite verse in the battle, but there is plenty of memorable writing outside of this. The use of bazinga is great, especially with the way it's delivered. And simple jokes like, "It's no surprise that scientist humor is formulaic," and "You don't have good chemistry with anyone," are just really funny to me. The whole battle is a blast to watch. The beat is catchy but also a throwback, the performances make me smile, the video has lots of creative touches, and of course the lyrics are jam-packed with great moments and segments. It's an overall fun time that also happens to have some savage insults. You have a bouncy vibe, good jokes, a fairly simple structure, and some elements that feel very retro. So if I were to introduce a diehard ERB fan to Freshy Kanal, this might be a contender for the first battle I show them. I think it would win them over. Number 7, Peter Griffin versus Homer Simpson. Alright, I've said the top 12 battles are ones I have a strong personal attachment to, but there are some battles that take the top 7 to another level in terms of attachments. I loved this battle when it came out. I'm a big Simpsons fan, and I've seen my fair share of Family Guy, so I was excited to see this classic matchup when it came out. The project really wowed me, especially in terms of the writing and animation. I will admit that the audio was somewhat boring in comparison to a good amount of battles below it. Notably, the performances don't have many noteworthy deliveries, and the beat and voice acting are ultimately just fine. But thanks to other aspects, I don't find the project boring at all. It's understandable to not like the battle due to the audio shortcomings, but for me to knock this battle for having boring elements when I find it thoroughly entertaining the whole way through would be ridiculous. Let's talk about the elements I like. First, the video. This is fully animated, and I love it. This was my introduction to Lou Creardon, who now also makes battles that I highly recommend you watch, by the way. This animation is among his older ones, and it's not always as fluid as the later ones he's done, but it has all the creativity I love in his other battles that he's animated for. I imagine it was a mix of Luke's ideas and those of Freshy himself, but the battle is just jam-packed with visual gags and Easter eggs. Just name a few: Quagmire appearing for the plane line because he's a pilot, Jesus appearing when Peter says Christ, along with the newspaper having a funny joke on it that he's holding, Peter doing the bird is the word dance, Marge's hat being on top of a really tall hair, the overly detailed beard shot, having people who worked with Freshy as the famous guests, and the aspect ratio being 4:3 when Peter time travels to his early seasons. I love watching this video. There's so much creativity and Luke nailed the style. Some of the animations are surprisingly fluid too, which is actually a little uncharacteristic for the shows, but it's still very appealing to look at. It's definitely among my top 3 favorite videos in this whole list. The other aspect I love is the writing. I learned that this was originally a CMRB that was uploaded to SoundCloud in 2019. It's interesting to hear the audio with the same performances but a different overall sound, but it does not negatively affect my thoughts in this battle. In fact, it helps me understand why I enjoy the lyrics so much. Though I sort of touch on it when praising quick puns and funny lines in other battles, I haven't outwardly said that despite having listened to non-ERB battles for nearly 4 years, I'm still very drawn to ERB's style. My favorite battles of all time are still mostly ERBs, and I love the battles for their memorable jokes more than anything else. That's why that series took off. But many ERBs did not usually have very technical flows or even multi-syllable rhymes, just funny jokes. I certainly like the battles with great rhyme schemes like Zeus vs. Thor, but I'm a sucker for some quick, funny jokes, even at the sacrifice of these other good writing elements. This battle has lots of great lines. Things like, "Matt left for Futurama cause you're in the past, dog," seem simple, but are really layered. There's the obvious future versus past joke, and it outright says that Matt Groening left. But you also have a play on the fact that Fry from Futurama left his dog behind when he went to the future. That's why Peter says dog. I love that. Other lines that reference obvious things work really well for me, like, you could travel back to when your show was actually fun, and the only cutaway you need is to a better show. These aren't winning Pulitzers, but they're solid jokes that make me smile. You also have some really funny references to the shows tied into disses. My favorites being, "Replace the Hound," "Okay, now bring back the Hound," referencing Mr. Burns in The Simpsons who often says "release the hounds," and the controversial Family Guy episode where Brian dies, but gets brought back due to popular demand soon after. You also have the funny joke against Meg where Peter disses his own daughter saying, "And Lisa and Meg, you know what, let's just skip that one." It's very funny. Now, there are 2 criticisms I'll acknowledge that could be made in response to my praise of this battle. The first is that there is weaker writing. And yes, Peter's last verse in particular is very little of note, but I don't dislike any of this writing enough for the weaker lines to bring down the battle. It's overall great in my opinion. They're just sort of average lines in here amongst the great lines, and literally every battle has that. I can't think of a single battle where every line makes me laugh or blows me away. So this has no effect on the battle for me. The other criticism is that this writing and recording was done under another series, and the writing was actually all done by littlesecks. Therefore, it might seem weird for me to praise this as a great Freshy Kanal battle when he didn't write it. This does not deter me from liking this battle, partially because, fun fact, a lot of Freshy Kanal battles are not written by Freshy himself. Mr. Beast vs. Squid Game was written by littlesecks, in fact. Freshy didn't even write the iconic Mr. Beast! Okay, well technically he did, that's a joke, that's not even a line in the battle. But in general, I see no issue with complimenting this battle even if much of it existed before the uploaders took on the project. The writers are properly credited, and I know Freshy isn't trying to take credit for writing this battle. If he's watching right now, I'm sure he's not thinking, "Yeah, the PowerPoint guy liked the writing, I did a good job with that. That's all me." He knows what work he did on the projects and what work he didn't. And as this is a great project, he deserves praise for whatever contributions to this awesome finished product he did make, just like everyone else who worked on it. Number 6, Yuri vs. Cho Fukawa. There are a few key things I want to say about this battle, and I'm not really sure where to start. I guess we can start with where I stood when this battle first came out, because there is a fun fact here. That fact is, this battle was my introduction to both Doki Doki Literature Club and Danganronpa, 2 of the most used franchises in rap battles. I suppose the fan bases of rap battles in these games overlap, which surprises me, but maybe I'm the exception. Anyway, it's been years since this came out, and dozens if not hundreds of battles with these characters from the same games have been made. But this is still one of the best. Most elements here are very strong. The VAs, those being Nier as Yuri and Chi-Chi as Toko, nail both the quiet and insane personas of their characters. I especially love how aggressive they get in the longer verses. It's chilling. Equally chilling is the beat. It's another very horror type one, but unlike the quiet sinisterness of Norman Bates, this one is very chaotic and unsettling. It hooks me a lot more, and I think it's the best beat of any of the Freshy Kanal DDLC or Danganronpa battles. This is all great, but these elements don't necessarily set the battle apart from the other ones. Instead, the standout element here is the disses. This battle has the harshest and most creative of any I've talked about so far, without a doubt. Interestingly though, all of the best lines come from Toko verse 1. This is the textbook example of the second verse sweeping the rest. The others are still good. They had some alright moments, like I'm gently closing the door on your little love story, and your depressive obsession was still just in vain, but it wasn't entirely pointless. These are good, but no lines outside of the first Toko verse in this battle, or any other name so far, frankly, come close to the perfection of, they must call you Yuri because you can't land a guy. That is an amazing insult. It flies by pretty fast, but it's a really clever pun while also being insanely strong. And the way Chi-Chi delivers it is so confidently and aggressively done, it only adds on to it. And there are other really hard hitters here, like the rock, paper, scissors line, the closer, Kinky Winky, and you'd be another portrait to mark off. I'm not sure if Freshy or Snakebite wrote these lines or if it was a combined effort, but this verse is cracked. I like the raw energy of it, where it feels like Toko really does want to kill Yuri. And she roasts her so hard that Yuri goes insane in the next verse. And if that's not crazy enough, she roasted her so hard the battle got age restricted. Okay, that's actually not why that happened, but this is simply one of the best verses in Freshy's entire catalog, with an unhinged nature I don't think any other verse in the entire season quite matches. This might seem worthy of top 5, and this verse on its own, honestly, it might be worthy of top 3, but this battle is held back by 2 things. The first is the other 3 verses are notably weaker. While they're still good, the top 5 battles have more than one verse that I really like. The other issue is that I kind of dislike the video. It's a nitpick, and doesn't impact my enjoyment of the amazing Toko verse, but it sticks out in the other verses that don't entertain me as much. A lot of it is just PNGs to the shaky camera. The PNGs don't even move sometimes, and a lot of it looks like I could have made it. The coolest section, visually, is the start of Toko's first verse, with the puppet animation that has fluid movements and great facial expressions. I wish the battle had more of this, because nearly every other part is either very bland, or the Cyan Coat art parts. Now for Cyan Coat, I think the Yuri stills and animations look a bit off. I think it might be the fact that her head is more realistic human proportions than the game's, but I can barely tell it's meant to be the same character. Ultimately, this is a small critique, and it only holds the battle back a tiny bit. This battle has a few weak points, but the highlights are unbelievable. Number 5 is Bob Ross versus Bob the Builder. Okay, so you know how I said that I have a really strong attachment to battles in the top 12 and an even stronger one to some of the top 7 ones? This takes that other level to another level. This was the first Freshy Kanal battle I saw that I liked. In fact, I think the first I ever saw was Zuko, which in hindsight makes me wonder how I stuck with the series. Nevertheless, this was a turning point. I thought it was a fun April Fool's battle when it came out, and to this day it's among my favorites for the holiday ever. I've talked about it before, but I generally like April Fool's projects with notable elements of quality that pack in goofy jokes that feel like they were exclusively done for the day. This delivers on both fronts. In terms of the April Fool's jokes, I find this battle very funny. The first 2 verses are very conventional rap battle stuff, but then the second 2 provide some laugh-out-loud jokes. Bob the Builder swearing a ton is a really simple but effective bit, and it leads to some great deliveries from littlesecks. The lines aren't the deepest cuts, but they're a good time. Then you have the shoulder angel and devil bit that I've always enjoyed, and that leads into the verse that sounds completely different from the rest, but I think is executed quite well. The 50 Shades of Titanium White line is amazing, and the flow is very catchy here. It all sounds really intense, but Ross is mostly saying stupid stuff, and it's very entertaining. I especially love how this verse ends with the implication that he kills Bob the Builder and runs from the cops. This is all just very silly fun, and I love it. But it's the elements of genuine quality that stick out to me the most. First off, this is my favorite beat so far. It's kinda simple, but man is it catchy. I love piano and brass instruments, and this is one of the few battles where I listen to the outro the whole way through almost every time, because I like the beat so much. In terms of video, there's a lot of style here. I love the backgrounds, especially the mountain one in Ross's first verse where the trees are dancing. It looks great and it's a lot of fun. The performances are also very memorable. The contrast of Little Flex and Tibbs' enthusiasm as Bob the Builder, with Zawesome's very chill demeanor as Bob Ross, is great. They all did a fantastic job with the performances. Then you have the actual lines. Like with Homer vs. Peter, the disses are not extraordinary, but I still love them. Lines like, "Wow, your whole personality is a blank canvas," and even just Bob Ross saying, "I'm creative, you just follow the instructions," are disses that don't carry much weight, but they're still very fun. They're not Toko vs. 1 level disses, but they work well. I still consider the latter line to be excellent because it's a great comparison between the two, and it's delivered very smoothly. I also love some of the rhymes like, "Oh Bobby," and "Won't top me." It just sounds great, especially with the smooth deliveries from Zawesome. These lines are awesome, and you also have some genuinely great disses, like, "Your first son, talk about a happy little accident," so there's a wonderful mix of simple quips and harsh ones. All in all, nothing about this battle is revolutionary, but for me, every aspect comes together to craft a hilarious and catchy project I go back to a lot. I can understand ranking this much lower, but I still love it. While I think most other projects below this one have much higher highs, this is ultimately about what battles I like the most, and I can rank them where I want to. And my heart says this one's top 5. Number 4, Jason Dean vs. Jeff the Killer. I think this battle has notable flaws. When I rewatch it, a lot of things do jump out at me in a negative way, like 2 lines using the word "a" to rhyme. Maybe I misremember Heather's, unlikely by the way, but I don't think JD was saying "a" all the time, so this feels like it was done because the writers struggled to come up with good rhymes to complete couplets. Another unfortunate thing is that the last verse is much lower energy than the first 3. The beat gets way quieter, and it makes this whole thing seem pretty anticlimactic at the end. These are kinda notable issues, but I also don't really care. This battle rocks. The last verse has some shortcomings, but it still packs in good lines like the "put you on blast" one, and even "this lone wolf only scrapped his fox show," a line that intrigued me because I didn't know about a Heather's TV show at all. I overall like this verse, but it's the other 3 that earn this battle such a high spot. Let's go through each. JD verse 1 is probably my favorites, partially thanks to the performance being my favorite of any I've talked so far. Vladimyr P does phenomenal body acting as JD, and he really does look the part, so this was an unbelievably excellent casting choice. This body acting syncs up with Snakebite126's incredible vocal performance. He has done countless roles over the years, and I still think this one is among his very best, most likely top 3. He has such a natural charisma, and I didn't know Snakebite was the one voicing for years. While I can tell it's him rapping now, he sounds like JD, and the mannerisms mix very well, the confidence and insanity of the actual character, and it makes this performance so engaging. When he gets aggressive, I am hooked every time. The whole performance is so cohesive, and among the best in any Freshy Kanal battle. The visuals are also top-notch. The storyboard feels very well thought out. Shots like JD rotating 90 degrees before firing his gun look unbelievable. The backgrounds and lighting are atmospheric and perfectly contribute to the tone of this battle while looking stellar, especially for being the oldest of all of these battles. The beat is also excellent. I love the way it resembles a music box, perfect for the horror battle, but also more creative than some of the other horror beats I've talked about. The low-key parts sound great, and when the beat gets more intense, it enhances the JD vocals and makes the whole thing sound amazing. The audio enhances the impact the writing has as well, but how good is that writing on its own? I think it's great. The flow is really catchy, with the slower parts sounding excellent and the parallels between the 2 characters being brilliant. My favorite is, "Be glad it's my high school I was planning to bomb because if I chose a middle school all your fans would be gone." It incorporates an important Heather's reference that even non-fans like myself when I first saw the battle would easily be able to understand. But it also successfully disses Jeff the Killer in a funny and impactful way. The rhymes here are also very pleasing to the ears, tying into what I said about the catchy flow. For example, I think the brain freezer drip and drain cleaner sip is a really good one. Sometimes multi-syllable rhymes have filler, or they don't make much sense, but these are both perfectly logical, so it's great. Just in case you don't get it, JD in Heather's he likes slushies because they freeze his brain, so there's the brain freezer, and then you obviously have drip. I could see someone saying brain freezer drip, being something that maybe, some people would say, it might be kinda corny, but some people would actually say brain freezer drip, and I don't think it's that bad. I don't mind. Rap battles are corny anyways, so who cares? And then drain cleaner sip is simple. Grammatically, more people would say sip of drain cleaner, but this works, and it's not overly convoluted, while also packing in another good Heather's reference, because drain cleaner is used to kill someone. I also love punchlines like dead clicks, and simple in-character moments like, I've got a zero tolerance policy for horrible fanfics. This then leads into the faster, more intense parts, and the lines come flying at you. I think some of the lines in this section are great though. Things like the gotcha life one, and the funny closing diss, the after picture on an ad about meth. Some lines do go by fast enough that I don't always catch them, but I can enjoy these moments in the battle thanks to how engrossing the audio is. Lyrical content is important, but I can still enjoy a battle when parts of it aren't extremely dense with good lines, if they sound great. This can be said about music in general. A lot of songs I love are ones I first got into because they were catchy. All in all, I love every second of this verse, outside of when JD says A. And that's only 1 second, so this is a pretty amazing start. Then, Jeff the Killer first verse. Vinny, doing the voice and body acting for Jeff the Killer, is great. They nailed the quieter parts, sounding like they've been through torture like Jeff the Killer has, while still having funny deliveries. I love the way they say, "My god, I'm stuck in the friend zone." These parts of the performance are great, but it's these screaming parts that really go insane. They could have ended up sounding really stupid, but the screaming deliveries are immaculate. They're loud, powerful, and mix into the audio beautifully. They're further aided by the electric guitar and the beat, and this whole section rocks. And some of the best lines are here, like, "If your love is God, then buddy, she's an atheist." There are other great jokes, and things like, "You're just mean girls but with incels," are accessible but still funny. Once again, this verse keeps me engaged the whole way through. The only flaw is the line, "You're so edgy I could use your corpse as a murder weapon," having too many syllables crammed in, and spilling over into the screaming part a bit much. Still, is a good line, just like the rest of this exceptional verse. The second JD verse is much like the first in structure, meaning there's not a whole lot else to say, but there's still great characterization and catchy writing. I enjoy laid-back lines and deliveries like, "I'm the kind of guy that the ladies love," and some more serious lines like, "Who's the real killer when you're the one left in bandages?" Then there's one line I used to consider bad, but has grown on me, and that is JD's nuts. It's dumb, but I think it's a funny joke with a delivery that remains confident, and sells the line in a way that I think it's not facepalm inducing. It is still pretty funny. All in all, this is an exceptional battle with a brilliant combination of funny and serious lines that I go back to a lot. It has low moments, but it's excellent overall. What an incredible and engaging start to my favorite season of Freshy Kanal. Number 3, King Dice vs Oogie Boogie. Here we enter the tier of 10 out of 10 battles. Not necessarily all ones I have super strong attachment to, but I consider these top 3 some of the best battles of all time. I talked about this one before in the Halloween ranking, so let's just jump in. In different parts of the video, I've said that sound is the least important aspect of a battle for me, but also that good sound can make up for weaker writing. Ultimately, my stance is that the sound is still very important, and when it's exceptional like in Trevor Henderson, it can make up for things I don't like as much. Sometimes a rap battle can sound so good that it's simply impossible for me to keep it out of the top 3, and that's the case here. King Dice vs Oogie Boogie is perhaps the best sounding battle I've ever heard. Where do I start? The beat is the best of anything on this list, period. It perfectly fits both characters, with a gorgeous old-fashioned sound that gives it a lot of personality. The mixing further adds to this, right from the crackling in the beginning of the video. With that crackling, you immediately know what sort of vibe the battle's going for, and the whole audio has a very old school sound to it that makes my ears very happy. But there's more to the audio than this. Both performances are absolutely top tier. Chase Beck as Oogie Boogie is super fun, with lots of fun deliveries like, "My sides might burst, you're leaving me in stitches," and "Call me your contract sucker, I'm on fire." His singing parts sound excellent, and he was a perfect casting choice. But McGuire as King Dice is even perfect-er. In the first verse, he absolutely kills it. Right when he starts with, "Straight out ink, well I'm hooked." His performance sounds beautiful, and the sort of harmonized lines in the first verse, especially those given backing vocals, are just incredible to listen to. Then the second verse just takes this to another level. The singing was not a common thing in battles at this point, but the risk paid off, and I think it set a standard for singing verses that's yet to be surpassed or even contended with. McGuire's performance is simply unmatched. Definitely my favorite of the entire 2021 catalog, and maybe my favorite in any rap battle. To briefly touch on other stuff I like, first off, the songwriting is phenomenal. The performances are amazing, but it's important to note that part of what makes them sound so stellar is that the battle has great sounding rhymes like Netflix tunes and Next to You, or I've got the hooks and the jives to keep the boogie alive. In fact, a highlight of the first verse for me is the incredibly smooth flow that goes throughout the entire thing. The writing and voice acting work together beautifully. Additionally, there are lots of memorable punchlines here. Puns like, "You can't make it past a mug shot," and "Contracts ain't the only pen game the king sells," and "Smoke you like the devil's lettuce," are all really funny, thanks in part to the perfect deliveries. The video is also very stylish and fits the vibe of the battle. The different aspect ratio is fun, and Trey Tunes provides killer art for both characters. I think Richie's animation in the second half is also pretty nice. But I find that King Dice's second verse is mostly just watching him say the lines as the camera floats around. I wish there was a bit more, but I still enjoy the style, and Oogie Boogie's second verse is a very creative and stylish appearance. Ultimately, no flaws really bother me much here. And even though audio is not generally an area I care about a crazy amount, I care here, because this audio is truly incredible. Number 2, Loki vs. Count Olaf. I love this battle. I'm not even going to introduce it. I don't think my introduction could ever do it justice. The Loki side is one of the best in any battle from this catalog, certainly in my top 10. Schwabity, voicing the character, is able to seamlessly transition between the smug confidence and commanding aggression, while still keeping a great impression of Tom Hiddleston. This is complemented perfectly by OTB Prod's body acting for Loki. He nails the mannerisms of the character, similarly being both smug and aggressive at the right moments. It's an awesome portrayal of Loki, and his verses also have great writing. There's generally a pretty big focus on rhyme schemes, and you have some great ones. I think the opening one is awesome, with some standout moments like the rhyme Baudelaire's chosen heirs, and the line, "The bitter grumpier Mr. Tumnus will pluck your eyes out with his goat chin, ha!" That's just the beginning, and I love most of the writing throughout his screen time. I'll run through a couple of my favorite moments in Loki's verses. First, the whole section, "Are you close friends with Heimdall cause that knows bridges of the Nine Realms so many flaws like a hotel, if only your folks had raised you better than you raised that eyebrow," is hilarious and smoothly delivered. You have a joke about Olaf's nose being big as he just kinda looks behind him to listen, an interesting but appealing flow pattern, a reference to the Hotel Denouement, made great through the British accent. It's a fun bit of wordplay with floors, flaws, and the eyebrow joke that culminates in Olaf raising his eyebrows. You just hear "eyebrow" in the background. Then there's the couplet, "Then you had a girlfriend but she wasn't down for the count, once she was in you had to opt out." This is a really funny reference to a series of unfortunate events, which I should note, I'm a big fan of. To explain the line, Count Olaf's girlfriend is very superficial. Her main trait in the book is being obsessed with what's in or out in terms of popularity. This defines how she lives her life, and it's referenced in a very funny diss about the fact that Olaf broke up with her over her weird obsession and also just being crazy in an argument. You also have fun play on "down for the count" that I like, and the body acting in this line is hilarious. The other thing I'll commend is the transition from Olaf's first verse to Loki's second. The line, "After all, I'm sure parched from thirsting over my foster daughter," has such a smooth transition. It's really smart the way they did it, as Loki shapeshifts on the screen. This is a hilarious and somewhat accurate diss, though not perfectly accurate, as he only tries to marry the foster daughter for the money. Not saying that's okay, by the way. But this is why Olaf says, "What? No?" as Loki bites his lip in one of the funniest moments in any Freshy Kanal battle. These are some of the best moments in Loki's verses, and the best in any Freshy Kanal verses. However, I consider this to be one of the most lopsided battles on the list. Not because Loki overshadows Olaf, but because even though Loki is among the best rappers of 2021 Freshy, Olaf absolutely destroys him, and takes the crown as my favorite rapper in the season, maybe the series. Literally, every line in the first verse is excellent, being either really funny, really clever, really catchy, or a combination of the three. It's extraordinary, the fact that the verse is this consistent the whole way through. I feel like I need to talk about every line just to prove why they're all great, but that seems a bit crazy. I do love this battle though, so just this once, I will quickly go through every line in the first verse, and why it's great. Note, I don't cuss, so I'm going to be paraphrasing a few of them. Starting with the "I wanted roast beef" joke. That line made me laugh on first viewing because it's a great reference to the first book in Olaf's series where he's upset that the Baudelaires didn't make him roast beef, even though he didn't actually tell them to. It also ties into rap battle setting because roasts and beef are common slang. Really fun start. Next, so call me the Hulk, this rap is low-key slappin'. Despite underestimating the rap, this line is a great diss against Loki, while also incorporating fun double meanings with the words low-key and slappin'. Bonus points for the slappin' sound and motion during the line, and Bruce Banner saying slappin' in the background is hilarious. Then there's, out of both of Odin's sons, you're the only one looking like an avatar carcass. Catchy rhyme scheme, and fun joke about Loki's skin being blue, because he's a frost giant. The James ad-lib is also very funny. The next line is a great pun on Asgard, and references Count Olaf being an arsonist, building on the frost giant line previously, so this works great. The next line's probably the weakest. Oh man, your whole plan got out of hand, that's so sad. However, it is still nice to listen to thanks to the decent rhymes, and the hilarious vocal and body acting. This leads into, I'm Olaf, but this dope dropped out the bridge like bye Frosty the Snowman. This is a layered one. There's the parallel between Count Olaf and Olaf the Snowman from Frozen, the play on the word Bifrost with Bye Frosty, which is the bridge that Loki fell off of, the reinforcement of Loki being the frost giant, and the diss itself that Loki fell off the bridge. Then there's, your bro's the goats of gods, you're the god of goats. Great wordplay, and a funny diss on Loki's helmet and the fact that Thor was loved more than him. Then there's, if you swallowed your pride, you would probably choke. This one's just funny. I've liked it a lot forever. It's simple, but it's a great joke. Now we have, I don't got that hocus pocus or that mind control, but still keep my stuff under my control. This is one of my absolute favorites. The wordplay of the rhyme is satisfying. The different meanings of staff are funny, that being the object for Loki and the employees for Olaf. The sinister pose from Skitsy as Olaf is great, and the slight hypocrisy makes this all a hilarious and incredible line. The horn pun about Loki's helmet and his love life is also a funny one I won't quote here, and the petting zoo line is additionally hilarious. I also love the rhyme get it dude and petting zoo. Then there's, heard your pregnancy was violent, not surprised your poor privates are blue, tying in the frost giant reference to an actual diss in a clever way. Next up is, remind me never to go horse riding with you. This one is laugh out loud funny. Stupendium gives an all-time great delivery, and it's an absolutely disgusting diss, but it's really funny. Amazing line. Then there's, of course, a more striking than Thor's lightning, a very nice multi-syllable rhyme and a great pun on the word striking, while offering a funny flex from Olaf. Then the last part is long, so I'm not going to quote the whole thing, but it's delivered well with strong rhymes, backing vocals plays at just the right moments for emphasis, and a funny joke calling Loki a court jester with horns that are all spiky. So that's the verse, entirely made up of brilliant and hilarious lines. I've thrown around the word perfect a bit in this video, but this verse's writing is about as close to perfect as any fan-made rap battle has ever gotten. The second verse also has great lines like, Odin had to let you Hopkins, and really funny ideas with Olaf changing costumes because he's an actor. And I could go through Olaf's second verse the same way I did with the first, but I think I have to stop here. Trust me when I say though, the second verse is almost as good as the first. So after all of that, how could this not be top 2? It's consistently exceptional the whole way through, with Count Olaf being the best rapper on the whole list. The better question is, how is it not top 1? Well, number 1 is Kirby versus the Very Hungry Caterpillar. You know how I said Bob Ross vs. Bob the Builder took the different level of sentimental attachment to its own different level? We'll come back to that. Let's start by talking about the elements of quality here that make this easily worthy of the top 3. Starting with the video. One of Richie's first animations in rap battles still holds up incredibly well in my opinion, and it's probably in my top 5 Freshy Kanal videos. I remember being impressed and thinking it was the best rap battle video of all time when it came out, and it's still up there for me. Richie's style fits both characters perfectly, and the whole battle is chock full of exceptional visual gags like Homer vs. Peter. Things like Kirby holding a maximum tomato for the Green Greens line, Freshy Kanal's clapperboard appearing in the start of the Caterpillar's verse, and the terminal montage style line. My favorite part of the animation is the way Richie draws the facial expressions though. It enhances the emotions in the line deliveries. Kirby sounds much angrier or more smug at certain points, even though Azia does more or less the same voice throughout the whole video. and it's thanks in big part to those great expressions. Speaking of Azia, this is probably still my favorite performance of hers. She's played Kirby many times, but this one is definitely the strongest, because the others always sort of felt like she was just reading off the script without much direction. But here, she sounds incredibly chipper, and it's an infectious positivity. I love this performance, but I love Snakebite's caterpillar just as much, if not more. It's not an impression of anything, but it doesn't need to be. Snakebite is so enthusiastic and charismatic in this role, and he keeps his energy the whole way through, even when singing or rapping really fast. Right from "check it," you know it's goated. And this is my favorite Snakebite 126 performance of all time. Let's close out audio talk with the beat. The bass beat's nice enough, but Freshy Kanal made some major changes by adding gorgeous piano and making the instrumental sound a little less booty. It's just a lively, happy instrumental that still fits the battle thanks to great beat work. This is another battle I always listen to the outro of because the beat is just that amazing. It's hard to make a happy beat like this work in an intense rap battle, but this is an example of it being pulled off. The last thing to touch on is the writing. I love lots of the jokes here. I'll list a few of my favorites in each verse. For Kirby verse 1, Mama told me to eat my green greens. A fun pun on a Kirby location and a good diss that leads into the fact that Caterpillar is unhealthy. Also, the only letters you're teaching are LSD. Simple joke, but it works. The previous line sets up who the Caterpillar is for viewers who may not know, and the punchline's a joke anyone can get and chuckle at. Caterpillar verse 1 has some of my favorites. The opening couplet being read by the narrator is a hilarious bit, and what follows is overall great. Things like, smooth like butter and I'm flyest in the room. That is a fun joke. It makes a joke about caterpillars while being a good flex. And the follow-up builds on the caterpillar references in general with being, I rapped harder than you when I was spinning my cocoon. How do you not love it? Also, 50 millisales as my copy ability is a great flex while being a good connection to Kirby. A great parallel between the two. Then there's Kirby verse 2, with a few more nice ones. I always thought you must be on Crystal Shardzio was a really funny start to the verse, and the line, even let there be light in your Bible-themed plot, is another good parallel between World of Light and Smash Bros. And the general premise of Very Hungry Caterpillar. This one's especially aided by the visuals I mentioned earlier, with Terminal Montage and the cross. Then the last verse has the line, catering to kids, I'm the pillar. That's such an awesome line. The play on Caterpillar is a super clever and fun idea, and it's a creative way to reference the Caterpillar's significance as a children's book. This is one of few things to say about him, and there's a couple lines covering this, but the multiple ways it's explored are all very creative and fun. So those are some of the best lines. Admittedly, none of these are quite up there with Loki vs. Count Olaf, so you may think that should be higher. However, what sets this battle's writing apart is not the lines, but the flow. This is the single catchiest battle in Freshy's catalog. There are many other contenders, but this one has so many different patterns and rhyme schemes and I love them all. Other contenders only have select verses that are especially strong flow-wise to me, but this one is perfect nearly the whole way through. That said, the first Caterpillar verse is on a different level in this department. The whole thing just flows perfectly, with standout moments like, I educate tykes on the basics, taking 8 bytes out of 8 bits, sounding incredible while still having great lyrical content. This verse also has the unbelievable singing section, well before King Dice took the stage, and it has my favorite fast rap in the series. This is just a super well written verse and song overall. It's fun to watch, has a unique but successfully happy vibe, great lines in it despite a lack of material for one character, and I simply love everything about it. But there is more. To really get into what makes this number one, let's go back to what I said at the start of this entry. I said Bob vs. Bob is really what got me into Freshy Kanal, because it was the first one I liked. And that's true. This entire season of battles was the formation of my interest in fan-made rap battles. However, Kirby vs. the Very Hungry Caterpillar means everything to me. When it came out, I was now officially a fan of Freshy, but still very ERB-pilled. I saw the matchup though, and I was stoked. I grew up with the Very Hungry Caterpillar, and seeing it represented in a battle was incredible. After watching it for the first time, I immediately thought, wow, that's better than most ERBs. This was the battle that broke my attitude that Freshy Kanal was a ripoff trying to be ERB, even though I thought he was a good ripoff at the time. After this came out, I rewatched it frequently. To this day, whenever I'm in a bad mood, I turn on this battle and feel a little better. When I saw the Battle of the Year results saying Light Yagami vs Monica beat this in the finals, I gaslit myself into thinking it was deserved. No offense, Eddie, that's just my personal opinion. From then on, I was always among the first to watch a new Freshy Kanal upload, and I even went back through the older stuff and ended up loving much of it. Then I started finding my way to other rap battle channels, and it was amazing to see what people with under 1,000 subscribers were putting out. I ended up making battles of my own, something I'd always been kind of interested in, but could never bring myself to actually do. When I first saw Mario vs Sonic by Cam Steady, the first battle I ever saw, I began writing my own stuff for a little while. I had a lot of fun with it, and I spent 5-6 years just kinda doing it. I would write stuff for school projects maybe, or just jot down the raps and then put them in the drawer forever. It wasn't until I saw this battle, a battle made by 60,000 subscriber channel that contended with the best battles from one of the most popular YouTube series ever, that I realized making your own battles is not ripping them off. That's a mindset that held me back for many years. Rap battles are not ERB only. They're a fun creative outlet. You can take any characters you want, write any jokes about them, turn it into a rap with all sorts of different styles, and make audios and videos with any type of vibe. The possibilities are endless, and Freshy Kanal's battles are proof of this. While I still overall prefer ERB's catalog, I think Freshy's projects are overall more creative. ERB typically follows a certain formula, and it didn't change much and still a bit more ambition in Season 5. But Freshy's battles have covered so many different characters from all media and history. They've ranged from animation to live action, and they've explored all sorts of different tones and styles. He and his team have made something for everyone, and to call him an ERB ripoff is a disservice to the creativity and talent of him and those who work with him. This battle is nothing like any ERB, and is proof of the limitless creativity that rap battles can have. His battles are not always perfect, but his channel, particularly this battle, are what made me realize that anyone is allowed to try their hand at making battles in their own way, and making battles has been some of the greatest fun I've had in the last few years. This project is inspiring, and making this ranking helped me remember why I started making rap battles in the first place. It's a different goal for everyone. Some make them for views, some want to be ERB, and some are just all over the place. For me, it's about using the skills and creativity I have and combining that with the skills of others to make something fun and have fun making it. I look back fondly on all of my projects. Even if I think some aren't very good, I can watch all of them and point to things I like while recalling how great it was to work on them. And gradually getting better allows me to find new things to learn from in my battles and appreciate them. Other battles from this season might technically be better than Kirby vs Caterpillar, but this battle single-handedly inspired me to stop putting all of my writing in the vault and start making my own rap battles, leading to me joining a community with several amazing people, including Freshy Kanal himself. In the end, this battle was life-changing. It's why I still watch rap battles outside of ERB. It's why I have this channel, and it's why this ranking video exists at all. And there is no other battle I can give that level of praise. So Dustin, and everybody else who worked in this battle, if you're still watching this, thank you. I'll see you next time.